Hey y'all, welcome back to the second episode of the Girl Meets Pets podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing pet stores, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Before we get started, I want to quickly mention where you can find me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Girl Meets Pets. Now let's talk about pet stores. We all love going into pet stores, right? I mean, there's cute animals, there's awesome products, and you're surrounded by people who also love animals. But there are some things going on behind the scenes at pet stores that aren't so great for you or your pets. But before we get into why pet stores aren't great, let's be positive and talk about why pet stores are great. As someone who does animal education, I love seeing places that will show people animals and also tell them about them and get that animal education out there. Even though it's not always the right information at pet stores, I still love to see people looking at animals and really intrigued by them. And I think pet stores are one of the first places that people go to when they think of animals, and they learn a lot from them. And it's even the place where a lot of people learn to love animals, and that seed is planted of loving animals and caring for animals. I also like the fact that pet stores have exotic pets and that they sell exotic pets, because if they did not, we probably would not see them as often as we do. And to me, that would be pretty sad because I have exotic pets and I love my exotic pets. They are so fun, they aren't traditional, and they just teach you so much about animals. Another thing that I love about pet stores is the experience of going inside of them. One thing that the big chain pet stores have done a really great job of is making it an experience to go into their store. So you're not just going in and grabbing some dog food, you're also going to see some really cool animals and probably learn something about them. With that being said, there are a lot of things that pet stores need to work on. Before we get into that real quick, I just want to say a quick disclaimer of when I say pet stores, I'm usually referring to big chain pet stores. I'm not referring to small mom and pop pet stores. Those are usually the pet stores that are doing well and actually care for animals. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to the next part. The first thing we need to talk about are the products at pet stores. For the most part, you are going to see products that animals cannot have, which is crazy to think about, but it's true. There are very few products on the shelves at pet stores that are good for animals and that are actually vet approved. Especially when you get into the exotic pets side of the store, you are going to see products that there's just no way those animals can consume. And I know this from experience. I know this from looking at these products, reading these products, and talking to vets and doing my own research on my pet's food. And I'm going to use guinea pigs as my main example because I see this a lot in guinea pigs, but I also see this a lot in birds and even in fish. When you walk down the small pet food aisle at the pet store, you see a lot of bright and colorful packaging, which is fine if the food inside wasn't also just as bright and colorful. Animals do not need pink or red or yellow or bright orange food. They are animals. They simply do this because it's bright and colorful, and usually small pets and exotic pets are children's pets, and bright and colorful catches the attention of children. Also, the actual food that is colorful is not good food at all. For example, when I got my guinea pig Bella, I got the wrong food. I got a certain brand that is just known for being terrible guinea pig food, and it had nuts and seeds and barely any actual Timothy hay pellets in it, and it was just overall terrible. And if you have guinea pigs, you know that guinea pigs do not eat nuts and seeds at all, and it was marketed as a guinea pig food, which is even more shocking to me. And I always wondered why Bella was not eating the seeds and the nuts. It's because they don't. They're guinea pigs, they're herbivores, they like vegetables and hay, and it's just, that's insane to me that that is even allowed, because it's not even the animal's diet. Also, I can't believe I'm admitting this, but one time whenever I had gotten Bella and I was sitting with her on my bed, and she had, the terrible spray painted food, and it's literally spray paint. It's probably one of those edible like spray on paints, but it was definitely just, it's not good. And I remember looking at it, and I picked up this like yellow cube, and I was like, what is this? Like, this doesn't even look like food. And it claimed that it was like dried papaya or like something like that. It was like a dried fruit. And I was like, this is a sugar cube. Like, it literally looks like they just took a sugar cube, like bought sugar cubes and painted them this orange color. And it literally, and I tasted it. Like, I'm not, like, I wish I wouldn't have, but this is really embarrassing to admit. But it was all in the name of research. And I literally took a small bite out of it. I was like, and if it's dried papaya, then I'm going to know because it's going to taste like dried papaya. And no, it was a literal sugar cube. I was right. And I knew immediately that I was going to switch to a different food. And what's interesting is that the good foods are at the pet store. They are just not in the bright, colorful packaging, and they are usually on a shelf that is, higher up because, children are on lower shelves and they usually put the colorful products. And you'll notice this if you ever go into a pet store. They put the more colorful, more bright and vibrant products on lower shelves so children can see them better. And I know it sounds a bit strange for me to say that these companies are deliberately putting colorful products on lower shelves, to market to kids, but it is basic marketing 101, and it's the strategy that they found that works is marketing small animals to kids. This leads us into our next topic of talking about why pet store cages are so small and why they look like toys. So I want you real quick, just to yourself, raise your hand if you have had a hamster. And I guarantee that if I could see all of you right now, most of you would have had a hamster at some point in your life. Now, if you have had a hamster, I want you to think back on that hamster's cage and what it looked like. Now, if it looked like proper care, it had a 40-gallon plus aquarium and it had the proper amount of bedding, good job, that is amazing for you. But most hamsters do not live that way. They live in a barred cage, which is terrible for hamsters, by the way, and they live with minimal bedding, and they probably live in a castle or a race car or a dinosaur or some type of toy-looking critter trail. And if you have had a hamster in a small cage, I don't want you to feel bad because it is not your fault. The information about proper care and proper housing of animals is not readily available. You have to go dig for it. And the only reason I found it is because I was watching YouTube videos and I was actually doing a ton of research into the animals. But most people don't do that. They just expect the pet store to know all about the animals and tell them about them. And for the most part they do, they just give out the wrong information. And it's not that the information has always been wrong, it just hasn't been updated in 20, 30 years. So that information at one time was correct, and animals could be housed in those cages at one time based on the knowledge that we knew at that time. But now we know a lot more about animals, a lot more about exotic pets, and things are changing. That was the long way of me saying that small pet cages at the pet store are a no-go and to do your research and find another option if you are going to be getting a small pet. Now let's talk about how these pet stores get all these exotic animals and buy these animals and where all these animals come from. So as for the dogs and cats at the pet store, those usually come from local animal shelters and are just brought in for the day. But as for the exotic pets, their journey to the pet store is a lot more complicated. You see, all of these big chain pet stores get their animals from this warehouse. And this warehouse is basically just this giant mill for exotic pets. They have guinea pigs, hamsters, all the reptiles, and it's just a huge mill for animals. And the condition for the animals at this warehouse is absolutely terrible. They're often left with no food or water until transportation, and it is just horrendous. And sadly, most of these animals are sick due to the uncleanliness of the warehouse. A lot of them also don't make it through transport and will never end up at the pet store. And to make matters worse, these animals will not get any veterinary care even if they need it while at the pet store. And if you guys want to see any of this for yourselves, you can go check out this video that PETA made when they went undercover at a pet store and at the warehouse. So if you want to go see that, you can check that out on YouTube. I've been super lucky that none of my pets that have came from pet stores are sick or have unfortunately passed away early, because I know a lot of people who got guinea pigs or got exotic pets from big chain pet stores and their pet passed away very quickly after they purchased it. And you're probably thinking, how can we get these stores to stop buying animals from this warehouse and start treating animals better? And the simple thing that you can do is just stop shopping there. I personally use Tractor Supply and Amazon for almost all of my animals' needs. Of course, these big chain pet stores are, for a lot of people, the only place where they can access certain products. So I completely understand that, but I tried to stay away from them as much as possible. And I know that there were people who wanted these big chain pet stores to stop selling animals, which I completely understand. I think that's a good idea, but I do still think they should have adoptions for exotic pets, because believe it or not, there are a ton of exotic pets that need to be adopted. I adopted my guinea pig Oliver from a guinea pig rescue here in Texas, and there are guinea pig rescues everywhere. There are small animal rescues, there are even reptile rescues. So I encourage you to also look at those before you go buy a pet. Because this podcast has been a little bit on the darker side, I thought I would end it with a funny story about me getting upset with a pet store worker. So, one time when I was, I was probably in my early teens. I had just gotten my guinea pigs. And so I knew all this stuff about guinea pigs, and I was so excited. And so I walked into PetSmart because I needed something. And, I take my time usually walking around the whole store and whatever. And I come to the guinea pig glass case that they have for them, and there's only one guinea pig. The guinea pig looks bad, and it basically looks like it hasn't been taken care of. There's barely any hay, barely any water. The bedding looks soiled and disgusting. It was infuriating. I was like, really, this is your job? You can't help this poor thing out, all this different stuff. And so basically, when we went to go check out after I got everything I needed, I thought it was nice. I thought it sounded nice in my head, but apparently it did not, according to my family. But I just let the cashier know that the guinea pig was not looking good and also in terrible condition. And, I said some other things I don't really think were rude, but apparently they are. And, so I still get made fun of about it to this day because apparently I yelled at her. I didn't think I yelled at her, but whatever, I guess I did. So, I feel really bad about it. I felt really bad about it afterwards because I was like, oh no, I didn't mean to come off as, that person. I didn't mean to come off as a Karen, but I guess I did. So yeah, that's the funny story of the time that I yelled at a pet store employee. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. I truly do appreciate it. If you want to keep up with me on other social media platforms, be sure to follow me on those at Girl Meets Pets. I will see you guys very soon with another podcast. Bye, y'all.